have been sewing for most of my life, but that doesn't mean that I do it well. The main question I have gotten over the years, both in real life and here on the channel, is how do you do it all? How do you balance being a parent with cooking and cleaning with all of the artistic things that you like to pursue? The sewing, the painting, the writing, the filming. How do you do it all? And the answer is that I do most of those poorly, but I do them because they bring me joy. In fact, I would say the only artistic talent that I have cultivated over the years that I am proud of and think that I do very well is writing. Everything else is just fun. And with sewing, I think for beginners especially, there is a fear of doing it and doing it poorly, of buying a fabric you love and ruining that fabric by not doing it right. So today I want to talk about that. I want to hopefully impart upon you some skills to take with you as you begin your sewing journey, and talk about the art of doing things badly. If you are intimidated by the startup costs of sewing, of buying machines and scissors and thread and fabric and patterns, my best advice is to go to the thrift store. Find an estate sale where someone might have been a seamstress. Find a craft reuse store. Talk to family friends, see if anyone has a machine you can borrow or take. The only things that I would recommend buying new are scissors and thread. Everything else can be secondhand. While I would definitely recommend being a little bit familiar with sewing machines and ensuring that you test them before you thrift them, it can be done. I have thrifted sewing machines and irons and ironing boards, fabric, patterns, buttons, zippers, you name it. I probably have thrifted it at one point. Before we get any further into the video, I've partnered with Wild to share their beautiful, reusable, refillable deodorants, so let's get into it. Wild is a refillable deodorant brand who utilizes these beautiful cases for you to refill with the scent of your choice. They are nature powered, they are Leaping Bunny certified, and they are vegan. I have actually been using them for quite a while, so I was pretty delighted when they approached me to work together because I have loved and used Wild for about a year now. Right now they have this gorgeous Cath Kidston case with the birds and the flowers all over it, and they have a few seasonal scents that they're putting out as well. Their deodorant is really silky and smooth due to the shea butter, and it contains no aluminum salts or parabens, so if you're sensitive to those types of things, this could be the deodorant for you. I have found that Wild has been the most efficient at keeping me smelling fresh, and their scents are to die for. I'm currently in love with the cherry blossom scent. It has a nostalgic smell to me that really reminds me of when I was a little girl. I had cupcake dolls where it was a little doll with no legs, and the skirt could flip up and you could put her hat on and she would turn into a cupcake. That is what the smell reminds me of. They have a plethora of fresh, beautiful scents, and I highly recommend them. So if you would like to try Wild for yourself, you can use the code WITHLOVE20 and visit my link down below in the description to try them out. Now let's get back into sewing. And if you are afraid to buy beautiful fabric and then accidentally ruin it, get yourself a big queen or king size sheet to practice on. Using mock-up fabric that you're not afraid to ruin will really help in your confidence in learning how to sew. And when you're thrifting, if you're wondering whether it will be enough fabric for you, a very quick trick that my mom taught me is the distance between the tips of your fingers and your nose is approximately a yard, which is 3 feet of fabric. A dress for someone in my size takes between 4 to 8 yards depending on the skirt style. But I don't just thrift massive yardage to make a full dress. I also look for things that would be cute accent fabrics, patch pockets, or contrast panels, or a different collar, or anything that makes a fun accent. It's really okay to mix and match and make your garment that much more unique. Patterns are going to be your best friend, and there are some that will be easier than others. Personally, I find it harder to inset a collar or a sleeve, so I tend to prefer sewing things that are sleeveless, like sundresses. These will be the most simple of all of the patterns, with just a skirt that is a few rectangles sewn together one way or the other, and a bodice that is usually 3 to 4 pieces. If you're a beginner, I would recommend starting out with a pattern that has darts, because that is generally easier to add in than doing princess seams. Everyone is a little different with what makes sense to their brains, but at the end of the day, a pattern is literally just a bunch of shapes that you get to sew together. Start easy with a dress that doesn't have a collar or sleeves to add, and work up from there. But the most important advice I can impart to you if you want to learn how to sew is to allow yourself to do things badly. Allow yourself to sew a poorly made garment. Allow yourself to be confused. Allow yourself to make it the wrong way. Get yourself a good seam ripper, because you're going to need it whether you are a beginner or intermediate or even a professional. And if you want to set yourself up for the most likely success, pay good attention to how well you are cutting out your pieces, because that will affect your garment later. But again, it's okay to do it poorly. You're learning, and you're not expected to do everything perfectly the first time, or the second time, or the third, or the fourth. If you're doing it to bring yourself joy, it really doesn't matter how well you do it. Nobody's going to see the inside of your garment. Nobody's going to see how many times you ripped a seam. Nobody's going to see that you put that one piece in wrong. Nobody's really going to notice unless you put your pattern upside down or the print on your garment is going the wrong way. And whether you have made a garment that is beautifully fitted or just a little bit okay, it's still impressive. You made something with your own hands, and that is worth being celebrated. It feels like the internet culture has made us intensely afraid to ever try something and fail, to make mistakes. The internet loves to pick apart any perceived flaw, any way that you've done it wrong. And because content creators present the best version of what they are doing, including myself, very often I hide the mistakes that I've made, just because I don't want to be picked apart by people that I don't know. But because we consume content where everything seems like it's gone perfectly, it can translate into us being afraid to fail in our personal lives. But who cares? Do it for yourself. You're not making this garment for some internet stranger who's going to complain about that one seam you did wrong 5 times. You're making it for yourself. And that's all that matters. Something else that I think intimidates a lot of people, and I have been asked often, is what machine to use. I'm not an expert, and I have just bought things because of the price rather than whether it's the best thing ever. This particular sewing machine is by Brother, and I got it off of Amazon when it was $68. Right now I think it's around $89, and there are other iterations and colors that are cheaper. You want a basic machine. It doesn't have to be a quilting machine, an embroidery machine, or anything super fancy. And I find that I prefer things where I can do the majority of the work manually. This means there are no fancy settings where something is computer-led. It's all something that I can adjust myself. There are plenty of manuals on how to thread a machine, and the biggest problem that I always face is getting the tension for my thread correct. This will solve a lot of your problems with your thread, I find, knowing how to properly set your thread tension, which is that little dial you see above the sewing needle. You want it to be between 2 and 4, but it depends on how thick your fabric is. So play around with that if you find that your stitches are too loose or too tight or just not working correctly, and you will likely fix your problem. If you are an extreme beginner with absolutely no knowledge on how to even start a seam, here are a few things to keep in mind. First of all, make sure that your fabric is right sides together when you are sewing. This means that the print of your fabric is facing itself and the inside of the fabric is on the outside. When you start a seam, you always want to backpedal over it about the first ½ inch or so, just enough to tie off the seam so that it doesn't come apart. At the end of the seam, you want to do the same, and you want to sew with about a ½ inch of seam allowance. On your machine, on the little metal plate by the needle, there will be little measurements showing you how much seam allowance each measurement will give you. And yes, you want to iron your seams. You iron them open, which means taking each flap and pressing it open. Most machines come with instruction books to tell you how to thread the machine and how to fill the bobbin, so I cannot advise you particularly on how to do that, but your machine should come with a little booklet to tell you how. You want to have a nice, sharp pair of sewing scissors to use. You want to clip all of your threads as short as you can make them so that they don't become a problem later. And don't use your sewing scissors on anything but fabric. There are a plethora of sewing channels that you could learn from who will be better teachers than I am. Even all of these years later, I just tend to be a little bit chaotic when I sew, and half of the things that I do from memory rather than following a pattern. But I think that's the biggest thing to remember is that, especially if you are a beginner, having a pattern will tell you everything that you need to know. And of course, looking things up, finding sewing channels that will boost your confidence are all so helpful. I particularly love Evelyn Wood and Sewrina because they are both incredibly informative about sewing, as well as Haley Marie Vintage. I would say those three are the best to go to if you want to learn about sewing techniques or how to start or where to start, or just see someone else put things together and explain it extremely well. And the best advice I can impart to you is to take your time. This garment is a seemingly simple dress, but it took me over a week to make, simply because I kept running into problems. I sewed the bodice and the skirt on backwards. All of my gathering stitches fell out of the top of the skirt. My thread ran out, my thread broke. I couldn't find the zipper that I wanted. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to add a contrast panel, and in the end, I didn't actually have enough fabric to make it the skirt that I wanted it to be. I also didn't add pockets until after I had attached the skirt, which is not how you want to do it, and my pockets are sewn on wrong. The pattern that I used is reportedly a size too small for me, so I did try to upsize it utilizing adding a little bit on the outside of each pattern piece. But as it turns out, I probably didn't need to do that because I had to end up taking it in quite a bit throughout the process and then again once I had finished the garment. And then at the very end, when I was putting in the zipper, I sewed over the shoulder straps. All in all, I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and it took me a long time, even though it really shouldn't have. But that's okay. I got a dress out of it that I love and will wear, and I think is really, really cute. And that is all that I care about. Let yourself make mistakes. Let yourself sew poorly. Let yourself do it badly. Buy yourself junk fabric that you don't care about just to practice on. Thrift as much as possible. In the end, you're never going to get better if you never start. You're never going to get better if you don't do it poorly. You're never going to get better if all you're aiming for is perfection. If we tried to do everything in life perfect the first time, we would never have anything that we enjoyed. And anyway, nobody's going to look at the seams and tell you that you sewed them the wrong way. Go forth, and as my friend Stephanie Canada says, sew in chaos. It'll be more fun that way anyway. So my friends, let's get into the reveal. I hope this video has imparted some sense of confidence in you to go and sew more, or learn to sew, or even learn to customize your own garments. There's something special about making your wardrobe perfectly customized to you, so go forth and sew with confidence. As always, I hope wherever you are feeling safe and loved, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!